Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being with me today for our Bible reading plan. We are in the book of Acts, chapter 10. And a couple of things. One, just want to let everybody know to put Friday and Saturday, October 10 and 11 on your calendar, because that is the annual Apologetics Conference we host in partnership with Southern Evangelical Seminary. Numerous speakers will be here, a lot of breakout sessions. So just check out, if you need to Google it to learn more, SES for Southern Evangelical, SES, Apologetics Conference. And you can get information. You can find it pretty easily and register. We'd love for you to come. It's a great experience. I also wanted to ask if my T-shirt is causing any of you want to run out and get a Hershey's bar or some Hershey's Kisses or something. I'm just wondering. Let me know. Anyway, today we are in the book of Acts, chapter 10. This is a really important chapter because it focuses on the growth of the church, if you will, the expansion of the church beyond its Jewish roots into the Gentile community. And that was a big deal. To this point, the early followers of Jesus had been sharing Jesus, preaching the gospel primarily to people who were Jews or God-fearers like the Ethiopian eunuch, but they had not really gone out into the Gentile population. And that changes here. And if you really, and when you think about Philip going to the Samaritans, well, remember the Samaritans were part Jews, part Gentile. They were a mix. The Jews didn't always look at them with respect, but the truth is they were in part Jews. Now you're getting to full-blooded Gentiles and so on. And if you want a sense of the Jewish attitude toward associating with Gentiles, in chapter 10, look at what one of the things Peter said when he arrived at Cornelius' house. In verse 28, he said to them, "You yourselves know." He said, "You Gentiles know this, how unlawful, not against the Roman law, but against Jewish tradition, against Jewish law, so to speak, it is for a man who is a Jew to associate with a foreigner, with a non-Jew, with a Gentile, or to visit him, and yet God has shown me that I should not call any man unholy or unclean." They looked at the Gentiles as being unclean, unholy, called them Gentile dogs, and this was so prevalent that Peter says to Cornelius and all these in his house, "Y'all know this, okay?" So that was the Jewish attitude, and for the church, for the gospel message to move through the whole world, that attitude had to be overcome. That barrier had to be broken. And so that's what's taking place in chapter 10. God clearly spoke to both Cornelius and Peter. Now remember, Peter was a Jew who was a disciple, follower of Jesus. Today we'd call him a Messianic Jew. Cornelius was a Gentile. He was a centurion, meaning he was he was a Roman soldier in charge of 100 Roman soldiers. He was a Gentile, good man, godly man, but he was a Gentile. And God clearly speaks to both of them, brings them together, and uses this encounter to start breaking down that barrier, that wall between Jews and Gentiles when it comes to the gospel. In verses 9 and following, Peter has this vision of a sheet being held by the four corners, filled with animals. And if you go back to the Old Testament, you can read it in different places, the food laws for the Jewish people. And in that sheet were animals representing those animals, those meats that Jews were not to eat, to have anything to do with. And it's not important. I won't bore you with the details of what animals were clean and unclean. But anyway, these are unclean animals, and Jews are not to eat it. And this sheet comes down, and God says, "Get up, kill those animals, and eat them." And Peter says, "No, Lord, I've never done that in my life. No." 3 times. I wonder if God brought the sheet down 3 times and told him to eat 3 times to remind him of the 3 times he had denied Jesus the night Jesus was on trial. He was making a point, "Peter, I'm serious about this." And Peter was wondering, what's this all about? And that's when the men from Cornelius show up And he goes to Cornelius' house, and it's Gentiles, and they get saved, and it clicks. Peter understands that when God was saying these animals are no longer unclean because I've made them clean, it's even more true people. It's even more true people. His attitude changed. He said at the end of verse 20, God has shown me that I'm not to think that way anymore, that I should not call any man unclean or unholy. And then in verses 34 and 35, opening his mouth, Peter said, I most certainly understand now that God is not one to show partiality. He doesn't prefer the Jewish people over the Gentiles. That's what he's saying here. Verse 35, but in every nation, every ethnic group, the man who fears him, who fears God and does what is right is welcome to him. His attitude had completely changed. And as he's preaching, the Holy Spirit falls, and these Cornelius and his family and guests in his house are all filled with the Holy Spirit, and they begin speaking in tongues. And you'll remember last week in Acts chapter 8, I think it was Friday, I talked about how each time the gospel crossed one of these barriers from the Jews to the Samaritans and now to the Gentiles, you have this dramatic experience of the Holy Spirit coming and them speaking with tongues because God is affirming that these different groups are all having the same experience. And that becomes becomes really important later in the book of Acts. So remember that. Now, that's just some teaching, some context. My devotional thought is this, and I want to frame it this way by asking a question. Which is stronger? Okay, now listen. Which is stronger? My belief in the gospel or my dislike for certain groups of people? Which is stronger? Your belief in the gospel or your dislike for certain groups of people? Who do I ignore? Who do you ignore? Who do I never witness to? Who do you never witness to? Who do I never invite to church? Who do you never invite to church? Because of my attitude toward them, your attitude toward them. Who do I never pray for? Who do you never pray for? Who do I have no burden for? Who do you have no burden for? What group would I not want in our church? What group would you not want in our church? What group would you not want in your life group if they became believers and tried to join your life group? I guess what I'm asking is, do you need, do we need a rooftop experience like Peter had? On the rooftop, sleeping, sheet comes down and God had to change his attitude. Do you need a rooftop experience like that? So that your attitude toward a certain group of people, I'm not talking just about race. Yeah, can it be race? Yes. It can be race. It can be economic. It can be regions of the country. It can be political. It can be a whole lot of things. Do you need a rooftop experience when it comes to a certain group of people so you will learn to love that group of people, pray for that group of people, be burdened for that group of people, invite that group of people to church, share the gospel with that group of people? Does God need to take you up on the rooftop and shake you a little bit? Just ask him. What's the answer? I'll see you tomorrow as we look at Acts chapter 11. God bless you.